63 of your book.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yep.
Third step prayer. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, we are, as Rob said, on page 142, right at the very top there. We'll go ahead and let's see. We'll go ahead and just start right there where we're at.
Okay, page 142, everybody. Next, you can be assured that you do not intend to lecture, moralize, or condemn. That if this was done formally, it was because of misunderstanding. If possible, express a lack of hard feelings toward him. At this point, it might be well to explain alcoholism, the illness. Say that you believe he is gravely ill, a gravely ill person. With this qualification, being perhaps fatally ill, does he want to get well? You ask because many alcoholics being warped and drugged do not want to quit. But does he? Will he take every necessary step, submit to anything to get well, to stop drinking forever?
Yeah, so this is a conversation that employers having with an employee that's obviously having trouble with alcohol, and it is affecting or impacting his work environment. It's a good correlation to a sponsor working with a newcomer that has come into AA and is wanting to stop. So the idea here is it's just giving you the what type of it's giving you the type of approach you might take with regard to talking to them. Obviously, it's not intend to lecture, moralize, or condemn. Those are important. You don't want to talk down to the trouble drinker, and just basically want to ensure that they first want to stop and that they're willing to go to any lengths. It's basically a qualifier, if you will. And when they talk about this being warped and drugged, they're also talking a bit about what we call brain fog. And so it's something that you want to check on and discuss. Rob?
Yeah, if there's any lurking notion that they can control and enjoy their drinking, Bill talked about this earlier in the book. They're not ready. They're not ready to concede to their innermost selves that they are alcoholic or that they need help. And if they think they don't need help, they're not going to do what needs to be done. Remember, half measures availed us nothing. If he says yes, does he really mean it? Or down inside, does he think he is fooling you and that after rest and treatment, he'll be able to get away with a few drinks now and then? We believe a man should be thoroughly probed on these points. He's satisfied he is not deceiving himself or you.
Yeah, I can speak from personal experience. I think in the very beginning, not think I was fooling myself. I was trying to fool other people in my discussion with them. I did think that deep down inside that I was going to be able to get away with a few drinks after a period of time of not drinking. And I thought that I would be able to control and enjoy it, but that obviously wasn't the case. And so it's important here with regard to this discussion. I think you can kind of ascertain whether or not the person is serious about this or not. It's sometimes, especially if you don't know the person very well, it's hard to be not to be deceived, and it's something that you might discuss. For example, my experience is that I was in this very same place, and I did try to get away with some drinking, which didn't work. Good examples of experience and that type of thing can be helpful in trying to figure this out. But you really have to kind of just go with your gut feeling on this. Rob?
Yeah, remember, Hank Parkhurst right here wrote this to the employers, but this can be used for sponsor relationship. You know, a lot of times people come into the fellowship and, they just want to get the courts off their back, their boss off their back, their wife or spouse off their back. And their reasons are not, it's not that they want to quit drinking. It's just that they just want all the other consequences to go away. And, one of the things that Dr. Bob used to talk about was that, you're too young. You haven't, gone through enough yet. Are you sure you really want to quit drinking? You know, if you have the lurking notion that, you just, that, you know, you'll be able to stop for a little bit, get everybody off your back, and then you can go back and do some controlled drinking. You're not ready, and that's really what they're getting through here is that, is the person really serious? Well, a lot of times, I'll tell Leo, yeah, you know what? I've got to stop. I got to stop. But in the back of my head, am I really an alcoholic? I'm not as bad as Leo. So these are things that, we have to take into account. Remember, the most important thing is that we plant the seed and we hope that it takes root. Bill had trouble with getting his first few people sober. None of them got sober. He kept talking about the white light experience that he had. Dr. Silkworth said, Bill, stop hitting them with a white light experience. Not everybody gets that. Okay, hit them with the medical facts and, about the allergy, hit them with the obsession of the mind, talk to them about these things. Bill said that, or it was mentioned, Lois said that later on, a lot of these people did get sober. They planted the seed. It might not take root right away, but they can always come back. Whether you mention this book is a matter for your discretion. If he temporizes and still thinks he can ever drink again, even beer, he might as well be, which almost certain to have. You should understand that emphatically. Either you can and will get well, or you are not. If not, why waste time with him? This may seem severe, but it is usually the best course.
Yeah, so with temporizes, we're talking about postpones or delays, and still thinks he can never drink again, even beer, he might as well be discharged. Again, we're talking about an employer talking to an employee, and if that's going to be the case and they're still kind of committed to their drinking, then it's time that you make that hard decision. And usually that's what will be a good catalyst for getting them to stop drinking. But either you're dealing with a man who can and will get well, or you are not. And that's really where we are. It's where that person is in the place. And if they really are serious, then great. You've got somebody that's going to be willing and able, and they're going to be able to work on that spiritual experience and finding that deep down inner strength to be able to stop drinking. But if you're not dealing with them, then it's not worth the time to try and work with them. Rob?
Yep. After satisfying yourself that your man wants to recover and that he will go to any extreme to do so, you may suggest a definite course of action. For most alcoholics who are drinking or who are just getting over a spree, a certain amount of physical treatment is desirable, even imperative. The matter of physical treatment should, of course, be referred to your own doctor. Whatever the method, its object is to thoroughly clear mind and body of the effects of alcohol. In competent hands, it seldom takes long, nor is it very expensive. Your man will fare better if placed in such physical condition that he can think straight and no longer craves liquor. If you propose such a procedure to him, it may be necessary to advance the cost of treatment, but we believe it should be made plain that any expense will later be deducted from his pay. It is better for him to feel fully responsible.
Yeah, that's kind of the skin in the game kind of concept here with regard to going to rehab or treatment. But anymore, if you are employed, if you're fortunate enough to be employed, you've got insurance. I know in the United States, it's the way it works. With that insurance, it usually covers a 28-day treatment at a minimum. And sometimes you can find insurance that will cover those longer term treatment facilities going forward. So point here is that after you have convinced that the person actually does want to stop, you want to suggest a definite course of action. Part of that is going to be the going through some physical treatment. It's almost imperative in some cases, just because withdrawal from alcohol is very serious. It's one, and it can be fatal. And we want to make sure that there's good medical care in their and available to them, so that they can actually stop drinking and go through the withdrawal safely and securely. Rob?
Yeah, remember it says there a certain amount of physical treatment is desirable, even imperative. You can take the alcohol out of the alcoholic, but they could suffer serious, deadly consequences. So they need to be tapered off. Okay, that's why, we have detox, we have hospitals, etc. In the early days, when this book was written, they had the town's hospital. They also had hospitals that didn't care to really take in alcohol because they were so difficult to deal with, especially tapering off. They talked about the belladonna treatment, the puke and purge, of the belladonna. Terrible, terrible, you know, things that they would do, in order to get the alcoholic, but it's better to be under a doctor's care, because we don't want anybody going into delirium tremens, and which is a seizure that they could die. If your man accepts your offer, it should be pointed out that physical treatment. Oh, we're on page 143 right now. Thanks for joining us. If your man accepts your offer, it should be pointed out that physical treatment is but a small part of the picture. Though you're providing him with the best possible medical attention, he should understand that he must undergo a change of heart. To get over drinking will require a transformation of thought and attitude. We all had to place recovery above everything, for without recovery, we would have lost both home and business.
And I'll add to that the family and friends as well. You'll have lost it's for the things that are out there that you really truly cherish and find important. Family and friends are also included in that as well. This undergo a change of heart is just another way of saying that they're going to go through a spiritual experience and have that be a part of their recovery. And that physical treatment, obviously, that's just the beginning. The rehab is just a beginning. This kind of going through that phase, if you will, for a lot of people, that's very important that they do go through that. So they got to be able to accept this program. I'm going to just point it out that this is what we're subscribing to, and that is the program of recovery that's outlined in the book. So it is going to be a transformation. It's going to be an important one. It's going to be one that's life-changing, and one that will be beneficial to themselves, to the employer, and to the family and friends. Rob?
Yeah, as you just said, transformation of thought and attitude. Where else did we hear that? In the doctor's opinion, moral psychology, and when Roland went to see Carl Jung, he's never seen one case get better, except, in rare cases where an entire psychic change has taken place. Transformation, okay? Instead of being selfish and self-centered, we become 180 degrees, turn around, and our thoughts and our actions have changed completely. And we care about other people, and we care about them and their needs. You know, unless we have a change, nothing changes. Is the old adage that I have heard. So the transformation of thought and attitude, the vital spiritual change, okay, moral psychology. They've talked about this in different ways. You know, we can use different words. Bill loved using different words, but it all comes down to the same thing. Okay. In order for the AA to change, gotta have a vital spiritual experience. Okay. Then you have every confidence in his ability to recover. On the subject of confidence, can you adopt the attitude that so far as you are concerned, this will be a strictly personal matter? That his alcoholic derelictions, the treatment about to be undertaken, will never be discussed without his consent. It might be well to have a long chat with him on his return.
Sure. And really what we're talking about here is this complete anonymity approach. That's why we call it Alcoholics Anonymous. And the idea here is that you want to ensure that the employee knows that you're not going to go out and talk about them to other employees, and that it will stay in the strictest of confidence between you and he or she. So just a good time to just reinforce that. It's important for both an employer and a sponsor to get across to a sponsee and or employee. And this is just one of those reinforcement times that you want to make sure that they know that you're going to keep their progress in complete confidence. Rob?
Yep. Sorry about that. I'm just
Oh,
To return to the subject matter of this book, it contains full suggestions by which the employee may solve his problem. To you, some of the ideas which it contains are novel. Perhaps you are not quite in sympathy with the approach we suggest. By no means do we offer it as the last word on this subject. But so far as we are concerned, it has worked with us. After all, are you not looking for results rather than methods? Whether your employee likes it or not, you will learn the grim truth about alcoholism. That won't hurt him a bit, even though he does not go for this remedy.
sure. So we're talking about the potential that they may or may not accept the program. I guess I'm at a point where I would say that because this is what we subscribe to and prescribe, that the idea behind here is that we want to make sure that this program is what is taken on. It works. It's worked for us, and it can work for the employee or sponsee, depending on where this is coming from. So there are other ways, obviously, and there are a lot of them out there. I don't know to the extent of what they are. I just know that the program of AA works. And so if I was the employer, I would be using this program as the prescribed plan of action and nothing else. Rob?
Yeah, on page XXI, the forward to the second edition, it says, upon therapy for the alcoholic himself, we surely have no monopoly. Okay, so the whole idea is that if there's something else that works for you, great. Bill has always pointed out to me that we can fight over, is it a twofold, threefold illness, but if you're staying sober on whichever one, that's our goal, is to get sober. Whether you agree with 2 or 3 or whatever, it doesn't really matter. You're sober. So whatever works, whatever keeps you sober. But the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, is what has kept us sober. We have been able to go through the steps, get our spiritual experience, work with other people, and stay sober. So that's what we know. If crystals do it for somebody, my hat's off to them. If prayer and meditation, whatever keeps you sober, our end goal is sobriety. We suggest you draw the book to the attention of the doctor who is to attend your patient during treatment. If the book is read the moment the patient is able, while acutely depressed, realization of his condition may come to him.
Sure. And so now we're working in somebody that has started their treatment, and this is you're an engaged employer with regard to the recovery. And the suggestion here is, and I know that this is probably old-fashioned from the late 1930s, early 1940s, that there was an employer-doctor relationship, I guess, that would be more acceptable at the time. Today, with the privacy and the different types of confidentiality agreements that everybody has, it may be difficult to do so, but nonetheless, if you had the opportunity to suggest the book and the program that's in it, that would certainly be acceptable. Rob?
Yeah, if you get to the person when they're depressed, they want to make a change. They're not happy with the way things are, so they want to make a change. If we're happy with the way things are, we're not going to change anything. But if we can get to them when they're depressed and they realize that their condition is hopeless, then they might listen. We hope the doctor will tell the patient the truth about his condition, whatever that happens to be. When the man is presented with this volume, it is best that no one tell him he must abide by its suggestions. The man must decide for himself.
Yeah, the idea here isn't that we're not putting the program in front of them and telling them that this is a program that works. It's up to them to pick up the book. It's up to them to pick up the tools and the program, and it's up to them to do the real work and work the steps. So it's up. You can't force it on them. If you force it on them, it's just going to backfire, and it could lead them to back to drinking, and you may have lost them forever. So you can't force it. Rob?
Yep, you certainly can't force it. And if they don't want it, they don't want it. You can lead a horse to water, as they say, but you can't make them drink. So you are betting, of course, that your changed attitude plus the contents of this book will turn the trick. In some cases it will, and in others it may not. But we think that if you persevere, the percentage of successes will gratify you. As our work spreads and our numbers increase, we hope your employees may be put in personal contact with some of us. Meanwhile, we are sure a great deal can be accomplished by the use of this book alone.
Yeah, the book by itself is a solution, and it certainly can and has helped thousands upon thousands of people in and of itself. The idea here, though, is that if you can get alcoholics in touch with other alcoholics, either through a meeting and or one-on-one type of exposures, that will go a long way in helping the alcoholic that's recovering as well. In addition to that, getting that alcoholic in front of other recovering alcoholics and working and having them work with them is a good insurance policy to them not drinking also. And we've learned that time and time again throughout this book and throughout this meeting. Rob?
Yeah, it's just again, as Bill is reiterating, this book has all the info to keep you sober. If you want it and are willing to do the work. On the employee's return, talk to him. Ask him if he thinks he has the answer. If he feels free to discuss his problems with you. If he knows you understand and will not be upset by anything he wishes to say, he'll probably be off to a fast start.
Yeah, it probably is pretty interesting that I'm guessing that they're going to want to share with you the success. They're probably riding a bit of a natural high that they've been able to accomplish a certain amount of sobriety at that point, and things have gotten brighter for them. They've got a clearer head. There's a chance that they are starting to reconnect with their family and friends. And the work that they're doing is returning back to its original high level. And so the idea here is to sit down and talk with them about it. It's a good reinforcement to that you are still involved and concerned. As a sponsor, obviously that would be the case. And it is something that is really beneficial for the recovering alcoholic at this point, to have them be able to talk about their experience and have them share that with you, so that they've got the opportunity to reinforce their sobriety. Rob?
We're at the top of page 145, everybody. In this connection, can you remain undisturbed if a man proceeds to tell you shocking things? He may, for example, reveal that he has padded his expense account, or that he has planned to take your best customers away from you. In fact, he may say almost anything if he has accepted our solution, which, as you know, demands rigorous honesty. Can you charge this off as you would a bad account and start fresh with him? If he owes you money, you may wish to make terms.
Yeah, this is an interesting position to be in if you are finding out some things that might have happened that are less than desirable. So as the employer, are you going to be able to keep things going in the right direction, to be able to write off some of the losses that might have occurred because of this employee? And certainly, as a sponsor, hearing some of these things, obviously, it's not so much on a personal level that they've done anything to you, but it is the point of keeping them anonymous and keeping it non-judgmental. So it's important for the employer to be as non-judgmental as well. Rob?
Yep. Okay. If he speaks of his home situation, can you undoubtedly make helpful suggestions? Can he talk frankly with you so long as he does not bear business tales or criticize his associates? With this kind of employee, such an attitude will command undying loyalty.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to kind of get across, is that if you're open and you are non-judgmental, you are there to really listen and have to be able to confide in. That goes a long way in helping this recovering alcoholic to continue with their sobriety and so on. He can feel like he can talk frankly. This is that talking and being blatantly honest, and so it's important. It's an important factor, and one that is very beneficial to the recovering alcoholic. Rob?
Yeah, when they, in how it works, they talk about honesty 3 times in the first paragraph. The alcoholic has to get honest not only with himself, but with other people. Greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. Whenever men are gathered together in business, there will be rivalry, and arising out of these, a certain amount of office politics. Sometimes we alcoholics have an idea that people are trying to pull us down. Often this is not so at all, but sometimes their drinking will be used politically.
Yeah, it's really important um, to not use this against the employee. As a sponsor, you certainly aren't going to do that, but as an employer, it's also important not to do that. And if it is occurring, it's important to be that firm leader and not allowing it to continue, and really talking to the employee about what we just talked, the resentments, the jealousies, envy, frustration, and fears. That really shows a strong understanding of what is ailing the alcoholic. If you can talk to that, you've come a long way, and you're going really far with the employee and or sponsee, and being able to get those out on the table so that they can be dealt with appropriately and done away with. Rob?
And the greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. When I wake up in the morning, I ask God to take these away. And I might divorce from these things so that I can take self out of the equation and do God's will. I wake up in the morning and self wants to run the show, but I have to remind myself, self You're not running the show. Thy will, not my will, be done. You know what? So I want to take self out of the equation. I want to get into what would God have me do in this situation. So when in doubt, we ask. Who do we ask? Our higher power. We ask, what should we do in this situation? So we know that resentment is the number one killer. It wrecks more alcoholics than anything else. Why? Because it cuts us off from God. And resentments only hurt ourselves. This is what we learned, in step 4, is that the resentments, I'm carrying them around and it's only hurting myself. So I want to get rid of these things. Jealousy and envy, frustration. These are things that, God, please, when these crop up, we ask God to remove them when? Now. Take them away now so that I can enjoy the day, so I can enjoy this moment instead of being miserable for the rest of the day and maybe the next day, maybe the next day after that. Take it away, root and branch, so that I can be of maximum service to who? God and the people around me. Okay, if I'm worried about myself, I'm not thinking about other people. And if I'm thinking about myself, I'm in my own head. And that's not a good place for me to be. Why? Because I get miserable. It's not fun. I want to smile. I want to enjoy life. Okay. So God, please take these things away so I can be of maximum service to you and the people around me. One instant comes to mind in which a malicious individual was always making friendly little jokes about an alcoholic's drinking exploits. In this way, he was slyly carrying tales. In another case, an alcoholic was sent to a hospital for treatment. Only a few knew of it at first, but within a short time, it was billboarded throughout the entire company. Naturally, this sort of thing decreased the man's chance of recovery. The employer can many times protect the victim from this kind of talk. The employer cannot play favorite, but he can always defend a man from needless provocation and unfair criticism.
Yeah, this is the sign of a strong, a good leader is the ability to squash this type of discussion and behavior. Again, not trying to play favorites, but you wouldn't allow somebody to make fun of somebody that has cancer or another disease. So why would you let them do that with this? So it would be something that you would say that is not supported, that they should cease and desist from doing any of that, and that it is not tolerated in the workplace. Certainly, as a sponsor, you would also want to intervene if you were exposed to the fact that some people were talking about a sponsee that you had, and not without permission to do so. Rob?
Yeah, office politics and AA politics are not much different. There's an awful lot of backstabbing that goes on and a lot of talking behind people's back. I hear somebody's drinking again, or that so and so does this or does that. It is up to us, and I'm talking from a sponsee position, is that it's up to us to protect our sponsees and anybody else in the fellowship of AA. Why? Because it can kill people. And if we don't do it, who's going to do it? Okay? It's needless. It is not helpful to anybody to gossip about other people. So it is up to us to stop it. Nip it in the bud, as Andy Griffith or Barney Fife said to Andy Griffith. Nip
Yep.
it in the bud, okay, before it gets any word. So stop it. Just if somebody starts gossiping, hey, we don't need that type of stuff going on here. Okay, this person's trying to get sober. Okay, and you're hurting their chance of getting sober. Do you want that on your conscience? No, nobody does. Unless it's the worst kind of people that you know. As a class, alcoholics are energetic people. They work hard and they play hard. Your man should be on his mettle to make good. Being somewhat weakened and faced with physical and mental readjustment to a life which knows no alcohol, he may overdo. You may have to curb his desire to work 16 hours a day. You may need to encourage him to play once in a while. You may wish to do a lot of other alcoholic. Oh, sorry. You may wish to do a lot for other alcoholics, and something of the sort may come up during business hours. A reasonable amount of latitude will be helpful. This work is necessary to maintain his sobriety.
Yeah, there's a lot here in this paragraph, and is that first and foremost here is faced with the physical and mental readjustments. Some of that mental readjustment is working a step 11, and sitting down and at night and reflecting on your day, and then obviously getting up the next morning and looking at what you're going to be able to accomplish during the day. Those are some mental readjustments that are going on. In addition to that, he may wish to do a lot of work for other alcoholics is a reference to step 12. So this paragraph really kind of highlights steps 11 and 12. And the other ideas is that this newfound energy that they have because they've been kind of in that fog and the doldrums of being under the influence of alcohol. Now they want to really make up for lost time. So you've got to temper that somewhat. It's great to have the enthusiasm and the desire to actually put in the time. I don't know too many people in my world, my environment that really does want to put in a 16-hour day. But certainly somebody that might want to push to a 10 or an 11 or 12-hour day is not out of the realm of possibilities. And then again, if you find out that they're doing that excessively, that you may want to have them temper that and give them time to, or ask them to take the time to put some of that energy back into their personal life as well, because obviously there's a lot of ground that needs to be made up there also. And you know, words of encouragement, the working with others is certainly an incredibly important factor, and it's one that you want to make sure that you reinforce and support. I'm also reminded of page 89, where it says practical experience shows that nothing will so much as ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. So that's just another reference to that in this, and it is very necessary, and one that has proven itself for me time and time again, and that is this work with other people certainly helps keep me sober as well. Rob?
Yeah, I was going to take people to page 89 too, because that's the most important thing. You know, all through this book, step 12, help other people, help other people. It is constant. You know, we are mandated, as Bill S. from New Jersey always says, we are mandated by this book to help other people. Okay? It's not a question of, well, maybe I'll help somebody, if somebody comes up to me and asks me. But, I'm kind of busy, I got a busy life. No, practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as working with others. Okay, if we're not working with others, we're not doing this program. Okay, and half measures availed us nothing. After your man has gone along with drinking for a few months, you may be able to make use of his services with other employees who are giving you the alcoholic runaround, provided, of course, they are willing to have a third party in the picture. An alcoholic who has recovered but holds a relatively unimportant job and talk to a man with a better position. Being on a radically different basis of life, you will never take advantage of the situation.
Sure. So we're really talking about this idea of working with other people, and it should be even a few weeks after recovery, they should be able to work with others, let alone a few months. And in doing so, they can help ensure their recovery, as well as help to help others get their recovery. I will make a reference here as just as a point of the book, and that is who has recovered here is the 17th time, if I'm not mistaken, that recovered is used in the book. And I think it is the last time that they talk about it in the book, in the first portion of the book anyway. So the idea here is that you know, alcoholism knows no pecking order, if you will. And so somebody in a lesser position can and will work with a person of a higher position in that, and hopefully, well, it should be a requirement that they don't take advantage of that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. They keep things anonymous, and they keep things very straightforward. Rob?
Yeah, and we can go back to the idea that one alcoholic talking to another can get through where nobody else can. Doctors, lawyers, you know, Bill S., our buddy from New Jersey, always comes up with the story about the man that falls into a pit. You know, a psychiatrist comes by, you know, a regular person comes by, you know, a doctor comes by and gives him a couple of aspirins, you know, the guy comes by and, you know, throws a couple of dollars to help him buy a ladder, you know, but the ex-alcoholic jumps into the hole with the guy, and the drunk who fell into the hole says, "Are you crazy? Now we're both stuck down here." And the ex-alcoholic drinker says, "Hey, I've been here before. I know the way out. It's only just 12 steps." You know, it's a beautiful story that I love when Bill tells it, but it's so true. You know, we can help where others can't. Why? Because we understand. Bill Wilson was able to get through to Dr. Bob because he understood. Dr. Bob has been with the Oxford group for 2.5 years with his beautiful wife, Ann. You know, they'd been going to meetings, but it wasn't solving Dr. Bob's problem. It was when he sat with Bill and he was able to get through to him and to have Dr. Bob understand, you know, what exactly was affecting him. Your man may be trusted. Long experience with alcoholic excuses naturally arouses suspicion. When his wife next calls saying he's sick, he might jump to the conclusion he is drunk. If he is and is still trying to recover, he will tell you about it, even if it means the loss of his job, for he knows he must be honest if he would live at all. He will appreciate knowing you are not bothering your head about him, that you are not suspicious, nor are you trying to run his life so he will be shielded from temptation or drink. If he is conscientiously following the program of recovery, he can go anywhere your business may call him.
Now, this is also an important factor is shielding and or restricting somebody's movement and or access, that type of thing is certainly a recipe for them returning to drinking. They feel restricted, and that's not a good thing. You also have to know that sober people do get sick from time to time. And so it's an idea here is that you've got to remember that if this person is in fact truly recovering and or recovered, that if they call in sick, that you take it at face value and allow that to be just the normal way that things happen. Obviously, if they call in sick often, and that's an issue in and of itself, may or may not have to do with any type of return or relapse to drinking. But nonetheless, if somebody's habitually sick and not going to work, that's a whole nother thing to consider. But in normal, just things normally, people will actually get sick even if they are sober. Rob?
Yeah, and that brings me to page 101, one of my favorite stories in the big book. We meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. There is something the matter with his spiritual status. His only chance for sobriety would be someplace like the Greenland ice cap. And even there, an Eskimo might turn up with a bottle of scotch and ruin everything. Ask any woman who has sent her husband to distant places on the theory he would escape the alcohol problem. In our belief, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man from temptation is doomed to failure. If an alcoholic tries to shield himself, he may succeed for a time, but he usually winds up with a bigger explosion than ever. We have tried these methods. These attempts to do the impossible have always failed. So, our rule is not to avoid a place where there is drinking. If, and it's a big if, we have a legitimate reason for being there. I love that story. It seems kind of crazy, but you got to remember that Lois would take a sabbatical from her work and take Bill out of town to try to get him away from New York. And they would go camping, and it would work for a short period of time. Bill would still meet up with people here and there that had a bottle, and he would end up coming back drunk as a skunk, you know? So we try to shield people, but it doesn't work. Okay? We have to make sure that our spiritual connection is strong. And if it's not, we have to redouble our efforts or we'll end up drinking again. So, okay, here we go. Page 147. Okay, in case he does stumble, even once, you will have to decide whether to let him go. If you are sure he doesn't mean business, there is no doubt you should discharge him. If, on the contrary, you are sure he is doing his utmost, you may wish to give him another chance, but you should feel under no obligation to keep him on, for your obligation has been well discharged already.
Yes, and that's, gosh, what a judgment call that you're in at that point. That's really that hard discussion that you're going to have with the employee. We've seen that they worked with Bill 6 times before he finally got sober. They worked with others multiple times to try and get them sober, and they kept coming back. So there is precedence for allowing a person to continue to work, in this case as the employer, even with a stumble or a relapse. So you've really got to make a judgment call there. If it looks like they're going to return to drinking and their old ways, and it's going to impact the business, then at that point it is a good idea to probably let them go. The same thing holds true for a sponsor. You want to work with people that truly want to quit, and those that really want to quit sometimes will stumble, and that is something that you need to decide, and whether or not you're going to continue to work with them. So this program is for relapsers. It is set up for people that stumble and come back. I certainly am a case that did stumble multiple times. Even when I had a lot of months under my belt, it ultimately was a great learning experience. But I stumbled, and I figured I learned, one, that I didn't have the taste for alcohol anymore, and 2, I was convinced after trying it why the heck was I want to go through that. And so it was just a good reinforcement for me, even if it did, quote, start my clock over with regard to my true sobriety and my days of recovery. But nonetheless, I was glad that those around me stuck with me, and I was able to get sober for good and recover. So same thing holds true for an employer. Just have to make that judgment call as to whether or not to keep them or not. Rob?
Yeah, Leo, I love the fact that you brought up Jim. 6 times they worked with him. They didn't give up on him. If he wants to quit, they'll work with him. But if they don't want to quit, they want to use you as their banker, or they just want to use you, or just to keep everybody else off their back, then you know what, we have to let them go. We have to move on. There's another thing you might wish to do. If your organization is a large one, your junior executives might be provided with this book. You might let them know you have no quarrel with the alcoholics of your organization. These juniors are often in a difficult position. Men under them are frequently their friends. So for one reason or another, they cover these men. Hoping matters will take a turn for the better. They often jeopardize their own positions by trying to help serious drinkers who should have been fired long ago, or else given an opportunity to get well.
Yeah, this is a different level of leadership. This is one where you're actually working with junior leaders and getting them involved in the program um, so that they can turn around and work with their employees at their level. It is part of a multi-tiered company with regard to leadership, so it's one that is a challenge, but one that I think that helps to forge good trust and confidence between senior and junior leadership. And then it also helps to develop junior leadership in getting them to be able to have the tools necessary to be able to work with an alcoholic employee and potentially save that employee and or not. So, Rod, go ahead and bring Bill in if you want.
Yes, let's bring Mr. Bill in.
Hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. This chapter here, To Employers, this is probably one of the best chapters for using for instructions for a sponsor. Whether you're the employer and you're working with an employee, or you're the sponsor and you're working with a sponsee, you're doing the same thing. You're a sober person trying to help the alcoholic stay sober or get sober, and that's basically what this is. All of these suggestions in here, or these instructions, are how to deal with somebody who's trying to stay sober, and there are different ideas or suggestions on what you can do to help them stay sober. And this chapter was actually written by Hank Parkhurst. It wasn't written by Bill, but I'm sure Bill gave Hank a lot of suggestions to put in here, because what this is talking about is if a person wants to get sober, you try to help them. And if they don't want to get sober, you have to discharge them and go and move on to someone else. And that's basically what you do if you're a sponsor and you're sponsoring somebody. If the person that you're sponsoring, if you really believe they don't want to get sober, you're going to have to, move on. I don't know if you want to call it firing them or whatever, but you're going to have to move on to somebody else. And there are people in AA that don't want to get sober. There's a lot of people in AA that are just there to get their family off of their back, or because they have some legal problems and they're just trying to make it look good for the court system, or they have papers they have to get signed. Some of those people want to be sober, and there's nothing wrong with them coming to AA. But if somebody's just coming to AA just because they're trying to get somebody off their back and they really don't want to be sober and they're not interested in sobriety, you're going to waste your time trying to walk them through this process, because they're not going to go for it and they're not going to pay any attention to you. And the time that you're spending on them, you could be dealing with somebody else that really wants it, somebody that's willing to go through this process. And that's pretty much the point they're trying to get across here. And they're giving different little suggestions and things on what to do if the person doesn't want it, or if they want it, or what they're doing, or how to deal with somebody. Because dealing with an alcoholic, as we all know, is a very hard thing. It's not really that easy to do. It's not that hard for us because we've been through it and we know basically what they're doing. But if you believe the person really wants to be sober, like they mentioned, the guy Jim, the car salesman, he relapsed like 6 times, a half a dozen times, and they kept working with him each time because they honestly believed that he wanted it and he was trying to get sober. And for whatever reason, he just didn't understand it, or he just couldn't get it, but he kept coming back and he kept wanting it, so they kept working with him. So if somebody's like that, you can keep working with them. If somebody doesn't really want it, if you really think they're just jerking your chain, you got to get away from them, because you're just wasting your time with them. You can't force sobriety on an alcoholic. I think we all know that from our own experience when we were drinking, and all our friends or families or coworkers were telling us we had to get sober. We just chalked it off and paid no attention to them, because until something comes from inside, until you're ready to go through some kind of process to get sober, nothing anybody can say is going to make you sober. You can't talk an alcoholic out of a drink. That doesn't work. But if an alcoholic doesn't want to drink anymore and they don't know how to get sober, that's when we can help them. That's when we can do what we got to do. And again, this chapter is one of the best chapters for sponsors. There's no mention of the sponsor in the big book because when they wrote this book, they didn't have that term yet in the AA jargon. They weren't using sponsor yet. But this basically is a really, really good chapter on what to do when you got to work with somebody. It gives a lot of suggestions, and basically it's saying, don't enable them. If they want to keep drinking, that's fine. That's their business. That's up to them. And if they don't want to drink anymore and they're having trouble with it, that's when we can help them. And that's pretty much what this whole chapter is about. That's pretty much all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share, guys.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, let's go ahead and start with or close out with the
Serenity prayer.
Serenity Prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.